When people talk about classic Hollywood dramas of the 1960s, names like Ben-Hur, Spartacus, or The Apartment usually steal the spotlight. But hidden just beneath the surface is a movie that quietly dared to say a lot more than most films of its time, from The Terrace from 1960. On paper, it looks like a traditional romantic drama. You've got Paul Newman at the height of his star power, Joanne Woodward, delivering raw, emotional intensity in a story centered around ambition, love, money, and marriage. But once you look closer, from The Terrace turns out to be something much deeper and much darker than audiences expected back then. This film wasn't afraid to explore uncomfortable ideas. Emotional neglect, broken marriages, infidelity, class pressure, post-war trauma, and the toxic cost of chasing success. And it did all of that before Hollywood fully broke free from censorship. That alone makes this movie fascinating. What makes From the Terrace even more interesting is what happened behind the scenes. It was based on a massive best-selling novel. The studio bought the rights before the book even hit shelves. The director struggled to compress decades of story into one film. Critics were divided, and despite having two Oscar-winning stars who were married in real life, the movie somehow slipped through the cracks of classic cinema history. Today, From the Terrace is rarely discussed, but it absolutely deserves a second look. So in this video, we're diving deep into 20 hidden facts you probably didn't know about From the Terrace, 1960. From shocking casting choices and censored themes to forgotten performances and surprising behind-the-scenes drama, this isn't just a movie, it's a snapshot of Hollywood standing right on the edge of change. If you love uncovering forgotten classics, untold Hollywood stories, and movies that were way ahead of their time, you're in the right place. Let's step out onto the terrace and uncover what was really going on behind the scenes. 1. The story comes from a massive bestseller. First Up, From the Terrace wasn't just conjured up for the screen. It came from a 1958 novel of the same name by John O'Hara, a writer who thought this book was his greatest achievement as a novelist. The novel is enormous and much broader than the movie ever could capture. That's one reason the film changes and trims so much. The original story spans decades of the main character's life and includes tons of subplots and emotional arcs that never made it into the screenplay. 2. Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were actually married. Here's something cool: the two leads in the film were real-life husband and wife when they made the movie. It was their third theatrical film together, and they went on to appear in a dozen more movies and TV projects together over the next 20-plus years. That real-world connection adds a strange emotional layer to their on-screen relationship, which is messy and conflicted in the story. 3. Joanne Woodward was fresh off an Oscar win. Just before filming From the Terrace, Joanne Woodward had won the Academy Award for Best Actress for her chilling performance in The Three Faces of Eve, 1957. So her casting here wasn't just because she was Paul Newman's wife. She was one of Hollywood's hottest and most respected actresses at the time. 4. The director was a veteran craftsman. Mark Robson, the director, had already made big films like Peyton Place and Von Ryan's Express before tackling From the Terrace. In fact, Robson was known for tackling complex emotional material, but critics thought he struggled to balance From the Terrace's sprawling social and romantic layers. 5. It was a major studio picture with a hefty budget. This wasn't some B-movie. From the Terrace was produced by 20th Century Fox with a reported budget of about $3 million, a big chunk of change in 1960. Still, despite that cash and the star power, the box office wasn't what they'd hoped. It made around $5.2 million in US and Canada rentals, respectable, but not a smash hit. 6. The movie tackles taboo topics for its time. Now here's something fascinating. Without modern-day freedoms of storytelling, From the Terrace explores marital infidelity, open relationships, and emotional alienation in a pretty frank way for the early 60s. Infidelity and even the suggestion of an open marriage inside a major studio picture, that was rare back then. It shows how Hollywood was starting to test the limits of storytelling before the full collapse of the production code. 7. Paul Newman's character is way different than usual. We think of Paul Newman as this charismatic rebel, but in From the Terrace, he's playing something more subdued and conflicted, a man driven by ambition, yet crippled by emotional neglect. This isn't the slick pool shark from The Hustler or the macho action hero. It's a more internal emotional role, which makes it stand out among his 60s work. 8. The screenplay was written by Ernest Lehman. Ernest Lehman, the same genius who wrote North by Northwest and The 7-Year, each adapted the novel for the screen. You can kind of feel Lehman's fingerprints all over the script, especially in those sharp snippets of dialogue and social commentary about ambition and class. 9. A young Barbara Eden appears in the film. Yep, before she was Jeannie and I Dream of Jeannie, Barbara Eden made a small appearance in From the Terrace. It's one of those fun little casting footnotes you don't always catch unless you're paying attention. 10. John O'Hara's novel was huge, like really huge. The author of the book, John O'Hara, wasn't just some guy, he was one of the biggest American novelists of his time. When From the Terrace came out in paperback, it sold millions of copies, making it a bestseller that publishers and studios alike were eager to cash in on. Fox actually bought the movie rights before the novel was even published. That's how confident they were in it. 11. O'Hara was a big deal in American literature. John O'Hara was known for capturing the details of American life, particularly class money and society. Some have even compared his observational talent to the likes of Fitzgerald. His work gave studios plenty of juicy material to adapt, but despite that popularity in the 40s and 50s, he's not widely studied today, which is wild considering his influence on mid-century storytelling. 12. The film only shows a fraction of the book's story. O'Hara's novel was huge. It follows the main character from birth through his adult struggles over many decades. The movie, by necessity, compresses it down to about 15 years, focused mostly on the post-war era. So if you read the book and watch the movie back-to-back, you'll notice huge story drops and character shifts that feel fast-forwarded. 13. The premiere was a big New York event. From the Terrace had its world premiere in New York City in July 1960 at the Paramount and Murray Hill theaters. Back then, a big New York opening was a sign the studio was really betting on the movie's prestige. 14. Some critics totally didn't get it. Critics were pretty divided. While some appreciated the performances and dialogue, others thought the film dragged, calling it melodramatic or even calling out the storytelling as uneven. One reviewer even lamented that it was an interminable essay on the horrors of money, love, and sex. That's pretty harsh for 1960. 15. The score was composed by Elmer Bernstein. The legendary composer Elmer Bernstein, responsible for classic scores like The Magnificent Seven and To Kill a Mockingbird, did the music for this film. So even if you're watching it for drama, the soundtrack adds this deep, emotional texture that subtly guides you through the ups and downs of the story. 16. The movie highlights real post-war American ambitions. The story isn't just about love, it's a snapshot of post-World War II ambition. Paul Newman's character returns from war and jumps headfirst into business and Wall Street culture, showing just how much American culture was focused on wealth and success. That theme still resonates today, this idea of sacrificing personal happiness for career success. 17. There's a goof you might have missed. Here's a fun detail in one scene with financier Mac Hardy. The amount of milk in his glass changes between shots. It's one of those tiny continuity things that die-hard fans love spotting. Sometimes the little mistakes are the most fun to point out. 18. The visuals were designed around CinemaScope. The film was shot in CinemaScope, which was the widescreen format studios were using to try to keep audiences coming to theaters. That's part of why the movie feels so big, even when it's just two people arguing in a living room. C-scope was all about atmosphere and space. 19. Myrna Loy's role is surprisingly heartbreaking. Myrna Loy, who appears as Newman's alcoholic mother, gives one of the most poignant performances in the film. Her descent, emotional pain, and interactions with Newman's character add unexpected emotional weight, and it's one of the reasons the movie sticks with people even if they find the plot uneven. 20. Rotten Tomatoes reflects modern criticism. And finally today, the movie has a low score on Rotten Tomatoes, around 31%, showing that contemporary critics still debate its value. But audiences often view it more favorably as a character study and a time capsule of early 60s Hollywood drama, so there's definitely a gap between critic and viewer opinions. So there you have it, 20 hidden facts about From the Terrace that go beyond what the average viewer might know. From the filmmaking backstory and literary origins, to casting curiosities and critical reception, this movie has tons of layers worth exploring in a deep dive video.